From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
A day after the redacted version of the Mueller report was released, it appears Arizona played a part in the 2-year investigation.
Plus, it's been weeks since the city of Nogales voted to take the razor wire off the border wall. But CBP is refusing to remove it. So what happens now? And just days after the devastating Notre Dame fire in Paris, we take you to one of America's Gothic cathedrals that's also recovering from its own natural disaster.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Sammy Giebers.
And I'm Austin Bundy. Thank you for joining us.
It's been a day since the highly anticipated Mueller report was released to the public by Attorney General William Barr. And out of the 400-plus pages, it turns out there's a direct link to Arizona.
Yeah, the special counsel described a, quote, leased computer housed in the state, which, quote, served as a nerve center for Russian intelligence officers to steal and store data from Democratic Party headquarters. The malware run out of the Arizona server gave the hackers capability to view the screens and record the keystrokes of the party employees. The bulk of the information stolen included passwords, internal communications between employees, banking, and sensitive personal information. The link to Arizona had been known as far back as June 2018, when the special counsel's office filed their indictment against the Russian hackers responsible. Due to redactions, it is unclear where in Arizona the computer was located and which provider gave the online connection. But today, House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler subpoenaed the Justice Department to produce the entire unredacted document and underlying evidence by May 1st.
In February, the city of Nogales requested the concertina wire placed on the U.S. border be taken down, but U.S. Customs and Border Patrol have refused to remove it. Cronkite News reporter John Cardinelli has more on what the future holds for the city. John?
While there has been a formal petition done, the city of Nogales finds itself in a difficult situation. We spoke to local residents, a local business owner, and a city councilman to find out more about the new reality Nogales is dealing with.
Corey's, our bridal store, has been here since 1968, and La Cinderella since 1947.
For decades, the Corey family has owned and operated the two businesses, serving the border region between Nogales, Arizona and Nogales, Sonora.
We have customers as far as Hermosillo and even more south, and customers from Phoenix that visit us when they're here.
But the landscape in front of Corey's drastically changed last November after Customs and Border Patrol installed this concertina wire all along the existing border fencing.
The razor wire that went up was I guess initially very shocking and kind of scary because we didn't know what the impact would be. But thankfully, our customers, I think, of ambos Nogales, both sides of the border, are very unified, and they don't hold that against us.
The sight of the wire and additional border surveillance is jarring for many Nogales residents.
I don't think it's a good thing. For me, adding extra fencing is racist against Mexicans.
In February, the city of Nogales unanimously voted to have the concertina wire removed immediately. Fast forward 3 months, and the wiring is still there.
I don't think we can win it in court, to tell you the truth, this particular issue. Now, there's some issues at the border with people coming across and being delayed. There's some issues there that I think violate our Constitution.
Nogales Council member Dr. Marcelino Verona Jr. has lived in Nogales his whole life and says there's really nothing the city can do at this point to get the wire removed since it's installed on federal property.
It's not that I don't think the community is anti the concertina wire. We don't like our community to look like an enhanced prison system. All right? We should be welcoming the people who can cross legally.
Despite the city's vote for the wire to be removed, some residents do recognize the need for additional security along the border.
I do think it's a good idea because a lot of people don't adhere to the rules and they continue jumping the fence. If they get hurt trying to cross over, they shouldn't be attempting to do it in the first place.
In addition to the wire, some Nogales business owners also point to an additional problem that's affecting their bottom line. forcing some stores to close.
We've been affected for several years now, mainly due to the long border wait times. So the pedestrian crossing is very unpredictable, as well as the vehicle crossing. But we depend on pedestrians largely. So, for them to wait 2 or 3 hours at a time is very difficult on them, and over time we feel that effect.
Our reporting has found that there is no time set for the removal of that concertina wire, so it is unclear when and if that is going to happen. Live from the digital desk, John Cardinelli, Cronkite News.
This morning, Phoenix City leaders shared a new report about the city's record number of officer-involved shootings last year. Cronkite News reporter Bryce Newberry joins us live in the studio with the details.
The 72-page report provided 9 recommendations to the Phoenix Police Department after the National Police Foundation conducted a 6-month study. The community and officers agreed on one of those recommendations to find alternative responses to mentally ill people. Now, this study started last year when officer-involved shootings were rising rapidly. In 2018, Phoenix had 23 fatal shootings involving police, which was higher than any other city in the country. Los Angeles followed with 14 and Las Vegas with 11. The National Police Foundation recommended documenting when officers point their guns at people, improving data collection for officer-involved shootings, improved training for officers, more transparency with the community, more engagement with the community like a survey, more proactive policing units to focus on hotspots and prolific offenders, and of course, finding alternative responses to mentally ill people.
That is one of the areas where I think we can do the most improvements and save the most lives. We've had dramatic changes in mental health, and we do not have high levels of investment in Arizona in mental health care, as identified by this report.
Newly elected Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallegos says Governor Doug Ducey's team is committed to helping the city with this issue. Chief Williams said an example would be a mental health professional responding with patrol officers. The Phoenix Police Department has launched a website with the full report and plans for implementing each recommendation. You can find it at phoenix.gov/OIS-info. Live in the studio, Bryce Newberry, Cronkite News.
Today, the Jewish holiday Passover and Christian holiday Good Friday coincide heading into Easter weekend, prompting several police departments in the valley to be on guard. Cronkite News reporter Bayan Wang spoke with a few of those public safety officials. Bayan, what are they going to do to make sure celebrating these religious holidays is safe?
Yeah, Phoenix police said their officers will have a heightened sense of awareness while remaining valiant within the community. Tempe police said they will be conducting extra patrols for these holidays, but I also spoke to a rabbi in Chandler who said they're being proactive when it comes to safety. Rabbi Mendy Dice, joined by his son and nephew, prepared to host more than 100 people for Passover this evening at the Chabad of the East Valley. It's the first Passover since the 2018 Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, a tragedy the rabbi says has prompted additional security for his temple. His goal, to ensure the safety and sense of safety for those who attend events at the center.
This is something we just have to deal with. It's very, it's important that people feel safe, people feel comfortable. We want people to be able to be themselves, and if they're nervous or on edge, it kind of doesn't allow people to really just be themselves and celebrate it. So it's important to have the security aspects to it to really keep people the sense of safety and calmness, and this way they can really engage and celebrate.
There are cameras outside the synagogue that are monitored, a camera on the door, and several other security measures he didn't want to share with the public. Rabbi Dice says he also meets consistently with public safety officers. In the broadcast center, Bayan Wang, Cronkite News.
Earlier this week, the world watched stunned as the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris went up in flames. The cathedral was not destroyed as many had feared, but it suffered extensive damage that could take years to repair.
The blaze was particularly distressing for some people in Washington, where another Gothic cathedral, the Washington National Cathedral, is still recovering from an earthquake in 2011. Cronkite News reporter Alyssa Klink brings us their story.
On a warm, sunny day in Washington, visitors pause to listen as the funerary bell rings at the Washington National Cathedral. The Bourdon bell rang for 7 minutes, joining cathedrals around the globe to remember the tragic fire Tuesday at Notre Dame in Paris.
It's the most terrifying thing to any of us who love and serve cathedrals, because we're called to be stewards of the place.
When Dean of the National Cathedral, Randy Hollerith, heard about the fire at Notre Dame, he stopped in his tracks to say a prayer for the sister cathedral in France.
Matter of fact, Notre Dame is depicted in one of the stained glass windows of this cathedral.
Both are Gothic cathedrals, but there are differences. Washington National Cathedral is 111 years old, what Hollerith calls a toddler next to 850-year-old Notre Dame. And Facilities Director Jim Shepard said the Washington Cathedral is made mostly of steel, stone, and concrete. With catwalks as the biggest wooden element, there's little room for fire hazards.
And probably the only similarity there is that our outside roof is lined with lead, similar to Notre Dame.
Despite that, officials here had already started a 3-part fire and safety plan when the tragedy in Paris occurred, a review process that Shepard says will continue.
Anytime you have a sister cathedral like this that has a problem that is as catastrophic as they had, you always look at it and try and figure out what you can learn from it and how you can improve your structure.
Some safety measures, like emergency lighting, sprinklers, and smoke detectors, were already in place, but Shepard expects more, if only because safety codes have changed drastically since the groundbreaking here in 1907. Most of the damage at Notre Dame came because of its oak wood roof and spire. Shepard said the spire itself weighed 700 tons, puncturing the vaulted ceilings, but he said fire brings other problems.
The fire caused a lot of damage, but so will the smoke and so will the water that was put in there to mitigate the fire.
And fire is not the only threat. The Washington National Cathedral was rocked 8 years ago by an earthquake that caused $34 million worth of damages. The cathedral has raised and spent $15 million on earthquake repairs in a process that is expected to take years. $1 billion have already been pledged to rebuilding Notre Dame. While the Washington National Cathedral is still trying to repair from earthquake damages back in 2011, they said they are overjoyed to see the amount of support going to Notre Dame during this time. At the National Cathedral, I'm Alyssa Klink, Cronkite News.
The National Cathedral is expecting a full house at both of its Easter Sunday liturgies, as they've stopped distribution of passes to attend the masses.
The National Cathedral will be streaming the 2 masses on its website Sunday, as well as an organ recital and choral concert. Up next on Cronkite News, why the Phoenix Public Works Director is talking trash in Washington.
And a special look behind the scenes at Cronkite News. We'll show you how stories are produced, reported, edited, and eventually make their way to your TV.
Stay in the know on the go. At Cronkite News, we work hard to report the facts and keep you updated, whether we're on set or on the scene.
Taking it from the studio to the field. So I'm here in South Phoenix.
In Phoenix, we're just a click away. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
I
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say this year's flu season is the longest in a decade. The CDC says there have been 21 weeks of elevated flu activity reported in the U.S. That's 1 week longer than the previous 10-year high, which happened during the 2014-2015 season and lasted 20 weeks. Based on rates of illness and hospitalization, the CDC says this season is considered to be moderately severe. But today's report showed flu activity is actually now declining. 11 states reported widespread influenza activity compared to 20 states the week before.
Innovation in government may bring big high-tech advances to mind, but not every innovation comes from tech centers on the coast, and not every advance is flashy. That was the message at a New America event in Washington, where Love Junius tells us how Phoenix played a role.
Phoenix Public Works Director Ginger Spencer was invited to Washington to talk about innovation. And for Spencer, that means talking trash.
So one of the creative solutions that we have is working with a company called Palm Silage, where they are taking our palm fronds, which are basically the leaves, and basically converting it into livestock feed.
The seemingly simple solution has helped the city keep tons of trash out of the landfill and got Spencer an invitation to a New America Foundation panel on innovation in government. The Government Fix brought together city officials and foundation executives to share their experiences and how to innovate in government. Cecilia Munoz, Vice President of Public Interest Technology at New America, says innovation is vital, but it's just as important for innovation to reach the people affected by it.
What we need now is the intent, and to make sure that the people who are making policy are both equipped with the skill sets and the intention to engage the folks who are the point of this whole exercise in designing the policy.
One way Phoenix puts its innovation into action is by partnering with Arizona State University's Resource Innovation and Solutions Network, which recycles trash to create products like compost. Spencer says that keeps grass clippings and tree trimmings out of the landfill.
What we wanted to do was take some of the compost from our city-owned facility and apply that in our Parks Department. And so by partnering with Arizona State University through the RISM program, we were able to evaluate our work. It was very successful, and then also make that business case to the city and to our Parks Department to consider applying it to more city parks.
Finding new ways to introduce change is not an option, says Spencer.
Every city, in order to survive, in order to be resilient, every city has to be innovative, right? You cannot afford not to innovate.
In Washington, Love Junius, Cronkite News.
Not only do the innovations have to reach the community, Spencer says they can come from the community too. She said the idea for palm frond recycling started with a call for ideas from the public, and the city developed it from there.
Right now, students at the University of Arizona are working on an interesting new device that they hope will help identify cases of child abuse. The device is used to examine bruises and help determine when the injuries occurred. That information can be important in cases where the victim is too young to explain what happened.
Because the whole idea is that we want to be able to allow the device to come to the patient. We don't want the patient to have to leave wherever they're most safe at. The device would have a really great impact on the world, and so we wanted to be a part of that.
According to the National Children's Alliance, nearly 7,000 children are abused in the United States every year. That figure is based on estimates from 2015, the most recent year with available data.
Last year, in hopes of increasing transparency in television news, Cronkite News launched Full Circle, where our producers followed around reporters on an assignment to show you every step in the process to creating stories seen on our nightly newscasts.
Producers Keegan Kelly and Michaela Moorhead recently followed around Cronkite News reporter Nicole Hernandez as she tried to cover both sides of a Senate bill that would take some Arizona voters off the permanent early voting list. In our latest installment of Cronkite News Full Circle.
So we're headed down to the Tempe campus where a group of students are meeting to call their representatives about Senate Bill 1188, which is going to remove inactive voters from the permanent early voting list.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I have to shake your hand if I can get this instead.
Okay.
Maybe. Nicole.
Nice to meet you.
A while. It's going to remove
200,000 voters from the permanent Arizona early voting list.
So we're trying to contact the person who sponsored SB 1188, and we talked to them about an hour ago, and we talked to her kind of secretary person, and he said he would talk to her as soon as she got in and the next time he saw her, but we haven't heard back yet. So I'm probably going to call back around 10:30 because that'll be about an hour and a half after we first called, see if there's any updates, because we're on deadline and we need to talk to her sooner rather than later. Okay, no worries. Thank you. Bye.
Hello, you have reached Monica D'Artosio, Executive Assistant to the Mayor and Town Council.
It's 3:37. We're pretty much done for the day. I'm hoping that at some point this afternoon, one of the people will call me back and say that they can interview tomorrow. So we'll try to get it done and finished for the newscast tomorrow. But at this point, we have the interview with the person from this morning and video of them doing their thing and calling their representatives. And then I was able to film my stand-up, and we got confirmed numbers from Maricopa County Recorder's Office. So the last thing we're missing is just this interview with someone who supports the bill, and hopefully that will come through tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. So day 2, we kind of left yesterday for just waiting. I kind of decided that I wanted to try to get the bill's sponsor, so we waited for her to respond, and nothing came through. I called multiple times, so now we're gonna move on to plan B. We're gonna call a bunch of the representatives who have voted yes on the bill so far.
So unfortunately, Senator Gray is not going to have time today before your 3 p.m. deadline.
Okay, that's all right.
I just wanted to give you a call and let you know.
No, thank you for letting me know. No, it's okay. Thank you for checking. Bye. So no phone interview. That's like the 4th. No, we've got anything. I don't know what else to do. There's a lot more against it on the website than there are for it. But the legislature's still moving forward. And nobody wants to. Well, then I say we move forward as a matter of fact. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks.
A bill that would take people off of Arizona's permanent early voting list is getting pushback from the community. Reporter Nicole Hernandez shows us how one group is making sure the representatives know where they stand.
Tell your state representative to vote no.
Indivisible ASU members got together to call their state representatives.
Hi, can I speak to Isla LeBlanc?
Asking them to vote no on a bill that would take inactive voters off of Arizona's permanent early voting list.
I would not be removed by this, but there's no point to having a permanent early voting list if it's not permanent.
There are over 1.5 million Arizonans that currently receive early voting ballots every election. Let's say that list of people is this pile of 100 coins. If the bill were to pass, it would take out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 coins from the pile. The bill passed through the Senate in early March with a 16-14 vote.
You have passed Senate Bill 1188.
It would take off any voters who have not turned in early ballots for the last 2 elections. While the bill is passing through the legislature, there are a lot of groups against the move.
Any voter suppression, regardless of your party that you vote for, is completely undemocratic.
In Tempe, Nicole Hernandez, Cronkite News.
The bill has passed House committees, but has not yet had a full vote on the House floor.
To watch more Full Circles from the past, just check out our Cronkite News YouTube page.
Bane, it felt like it hit triple digits. Was today our first 100?
I know, we were so close. We're in the way upper 90s right now, but actually today was one of the hottest days we've had all of 2019 so far. So right now we're at 97 degrees currently, and the rest of the state is also feeling that nice warm temperature too. If we take a look up in the north, they're in the 70s and 80s currently, and then down in the south we're hitting those 90s, those high 90s, and then Douglas 85, and then in Gila Bend 102 degrees. But back here in Phoenix, we're at 97 degrees right now. But then we're going to be cooling down as the night continues. Around 8 o'clock, we'll be hitting that 90-degree mark. And then 9 p.m., 87 back into those 80s. And then by 10, 85. So it'll be still pretty warm tonight. Tomorrow morning, we're still going to be keeping those nice warm temperatures. About 8 o'clock, we're at 75 degrees. We'll be heating up really quickly. By noon, we'll be at the 88-degree mark, flirting with those 90s. And by 4 o'clock, 92. But we're expecting to see a 93 high for tomorrow. But Sunday, we're going to be cooling back down into those 80s through Tuesday. But then by Wednesday, those 90s are coming back. And on Friday, 99 degrees is expected. So we'll see if we'll hit those 100-degree temperatures on Friday. Live in the Weather Center, I'm Bane Ferroni, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS.
Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. The legislature passes a strict ban on cell phone use while driving, and contributions to the state Republican Party hit an 18-year low. That's on the next Journalists Roundtable.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, Mark Shields and David Brooks break down the political fallout from the Mueller report. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.